My sister took revenge on our entire family, and I helped her burn their lies down. Hello everyone. Before I start, I need to explain something about Indian families. From the outside, everything looks perfect. A big house, respectful parents, successful children, festivals together, family dinners where everyone smiles. But inside some homes, the biggest enemies are the people who share your last name. My name is Arjun Sharma. I grew up in Ahmedabad, in the state of Gujarat. Our family looked respectable to everyone in society. My father owned a textile trading business. It wasn't huge, but it was enough for us to live comfortably. My mother was a strict homemaker who cared deeply about reputation. To her, what neighbors thought about us was more important than what we actually felt. And then there was my older sister. Her name was Kavya. In my opinion, she was the smartest person in our entire family. But to my parents, she was nothing but a disappointment. In many Indian families there is always someone who gets special treatment. In our house that person was my cousin Rohan. Yes, not even their own child. My father's older brother lived with us along with his wife and son. Rohan was treated like a prince. He got a new phone every year. He had expensive coaching classes. When he turned 18, my uncle bought him a brand new bike. Meanwhile, Kavya had to fight for every opportunity. She wanted to study law. She was brilliant in school. Teachers always praised her. She consistently scored the highest marks in her class. But when the time came for college applications, my parents refused. My mother said something that I will never forget. She looked directly at Kavya and said, "Girls don't need big careers. Your husband will take care of you." The entire room went quiet. Kavya didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply said, "Fine," but I noticed something in her eyes. Something calm, something patient, something that told me this story wasn't finished yet. 2 years later, things got worse. Rohan failed his college exams. Not once, not twice, 3 times. My uncle was furious, but instead of blaming Rohan, the family slowly created a different story. And that story involved destroying my sister. One evening during dinner, my father suddenly slammed his hand on the table. "Kavya," he shouted, "what did you do with Rohan's project files?" Kavya looked confused. "What project files?" Rohan immediately spoke. "She deleted my assignment from my laptop. I saw her using it yesterday." My mother gasped as if she had just witnessed a crime. "You sabotaged your own brother." Kavya stood up slowly. "I never touched his laptop." But nobody believed her. Not my parents, not my uncle, not even the relatives who heard the story later. Within one night, my sister became the villain of the family. And the punishment came quickly. My father banned her from continuing her studies. He said the family couldn't afford to waste money on someone untrustworthy. But strangely, they still had money for Rohan's 4th attempt at college. That night I found Kavya sitting on the rooftop. The lights of Ahmedabad stretched across the dark sky. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She was just staring at the city. I sat next to her and asked quietly, "What are you going to do now?" She looked at me and smiled. A calm smile. "Nothing." Then she said something that I would remember for years. "Let them dig their own grave." For the next 3 years, Kavya changed. She stopped arguing. She helped my mother with household work. She stayed quiet during family gatherings. Everyone believed they had finally broken her. But they didn't know the truth. Kavya had secretly started working online. Freelance legal research, contract writing, translation work for international clients. At night, after everyone slept, she studied law books. Every single night, I was the only person who knew. Sometimes I would bring her tea while she worked at 2 in the morning. One night I asked her, "Why are you doing all this secretly?" She answered calmly, "Because when people think you're weak, they stop watching you." And slowly, without anyone noticing, she started building a future. 3 years later something strange began happening in our father's business. Large shipments started disappearing. Accounts were mismatched. Customers complained about missing payments. My father blamed the employees. He even fired 2 workers. But the problems continued. Kavya quietly started investigating. She checked public records. She looked at banking patterns. She studied company documents late at night. Within a few weeks she discovered something shocking. The person stealing money from the business was not an employee. It was Rohan. He had been secretly transferring company money into online gambling accounts. But that wasn't even the worst part. He had also taken several loans using my father's company name. Huge loans. If those loans were exposed, the entire business could collapse. I asked Kavya what she planned to do with this information. She simply said, "Nothing yet." Then she added quietly, "Revenge works best when everyone is watching." A few months later our parents arranged Kavya's marriage. The groom was a businessman from Surat. He was 10 years older than her. There were rumors about his temper. But my parents didn't care. To them, this marriage was about reputation. Kavya didn't argue, which shocked everyone. She calmly agreed to everything. The engagement ceremony was held at our house. Relatives arrived from different cities. Business partners came to congratulate my father. The house was crowded, and that was exactly what my sister wanted. During dinner, Kavya suddenly stood up and tapped a glass to get everyone's attention. The room slowly became quiet. She smiled politely. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight." My father nodded proudly. Then she continued, "But before I get married, I want to clear my name." The room froze. She walked toward the television in the living room. Then she connected a small laptop. Within seconds the screen lit up. Bank statements appeared, transaction records, loan agreements, gambling payments, all connected to my father's company account. People started whispering. My uncle stood up angrily. "What is this nonsense?" Kavya calmly zoomed in on the documents. Then she revealed the name connected to the account. Rohan Sharma. The entire room exploded with shock. But Kavya wasn't finished. She played another video. Security camera footage from 3 years ago. Rohan sitting at his laptop, deleting his own assignment files, then pretending they were missing. The exact moment he framed my sister. My father looked like someone had punched him. My mother couldn't say a single word. My uncle's face turned pale. Rohan suddenly tried to leave the room. But Kavya spoke again. "Oh, and one more thing." Everyone turned toward her. "I already sent these documents to the bank's fraud department." The room became completely silent. Then she smiled slightly. "For once, the truth will do the punishment." Within weeks everything collapsed. Rohan was investigated for financial fraud. The bank froze several accounts. My uncle's reputation in society was destroyed. Relatives stopped visiting our house. But the biggest surprise came later. The man Kavya was supposed to marry canceled the engagement. He said the family drama was too embarrassing. My parents expected Kavya to cry. Instead, she calmly packed her bags. She walked toward the door. My father asked her, "Where are you going?" She looked back and said, "Somewhere I should have gone a long time ago." My father asked angrily, "What do you mean?" She smiled and replied, "Thank you for underestimating me." Then she left the house. Not as a broken daughter, but as the strongest person in the entire story. 3 years later, Kavya Sharma became a successful lawyer in Mumbai. She specializes in financial crime cases. Banks hire her, corporations hire her, even investigators consult her sometimes. Meanwhile, our family is still trying to rebuild its reputation. As for me, I eventually left the family business and joined my sister. Because I learned something from her. Sometimes revenge isn't about anger. Sometimes it's about patience. And patience can destroy lies more effectively than any weapon. Hello everyone. Update 1. I didn't expect my first post to get so much attention. A lot of people asked what happened after my sister exposed our cousin and left the house. So here is what happened next. After Kavya walked out of our house in Ahmedabad, everything felt strangely empty. My parents pretended they didn't care. My mother removed every photo of Kavya from the living room. My father refused to even say her name. But outside the house, the damage from that night was already spreading. The bank investigation against Rohan moved very quickly. Within a few weeks, investigators discovered multiple suspicious transactions connected to our father's company. There were gambling payments, unapproved money transfers, and several loans taken using the company name. My uncle tried to protect his son. He hired lawyers. He begged relatives for help. But nobody wanted to be involved in a financial fraud case. In our society, reputation spreads fast, but scandals spread even faster. Relatives who once praised Rohan suddenly stopped answering phone calls. Meanwhile, nobody knew where Kavya had gone. Even I didn't know at first. She had left quietly without telling anyone. About 2 months later, I finally received a message from her. It was very short. "I'm safe. Don't worry." That was it. Later I found out she had moved to Mumbai. She rented a small apartment and started working full-time. For the first time in her life, she was free to choose her own path. She enrolled in a distance law program and continued the freelance legal work she had been doing secretly for years. Except now she didn't have to hide it. And when people like my sister finally get freedom, they move very fast. Within a year, she completed several legal certifications. Her freelance clients started recommending her to bigger companies. Banks began hiring her to investigate suspicious contracts and financial records. Her reputation grew quickly. But back in Ahmedabad, things were not going well for our family. The scandal with Rohan had damaged my father's business badly. Some clients stopped working with us. Several partners lost trust in our company. Money problems started appearing. My father became extremely stressed. He worked late every night trying to save the business. At the time, we believed the worst part of the story was already over. We were wrong. Almost 2 years passed like this. Then one afternoon I received another message from Kavya. This time it was different. It simply said, "Come to Mumbai. I need your help." I took the train the next morning and traveled to Mumbai. When I arrived at her office, I was shocked. My sister had completely transformed. She looked confident and professional. Her office desk was covered with legal files and financial reports. Several people were working in the same office space. It was clear she had built something impressive. She smiled when she saw me. But the smile disappeared quickly. "Sit down," she said. Then she handed me a thick folder. "Read this." Inside were documents related to our father's business. Bank statements, property papers, partnership contracts. At first I didn't understand why she was showing me these things. Then I noticed something strange. One of the partnership agreements looked different from what I remembered. The contract showed that one of my father's business partners owned almost half of the company. I looked up at Kavya. "That can't be right." She nodded slowly. "I know. The partner mentioned in the document was a man named Mahesh Patel. Mahesh had worked with my father for more than 15 years. He visited our house during festivals. Our parents treated him like family. But according to the contract in my hands, Mahesh owned 45% of our company. I knew that wasn't true. For years everyone believed he only owned a small share." Kavya opened another folder and placed several documents on the desk. These are older copies of the same contract. The original agreement clearly showed something different. Mahesh owned only 15% of the company. Somehow the percentage had changed over the years, and the documents now registered in legal records supported the higher ownership. I felt my stomach drop. "Are you saying someone changed the contract?" Kavya looked directly at me. "Yes." She showed me a forensic report comparing signatures on the documents. The signature that supposedly belonged to my father had small differences. Differences that proved it was not written by him. Someone had forged it, and the evidence pointed to one person. Mahesh. For years he had slowly manipulated the company records. He had changed the ownership percentages using forged documents. If nobody noticed, he could eventually take control of nearly half the business. My father had trusted him completely, which made the betrayal even worse. I asked Kavya how she discovered all of this. She explained that while working on financial fraud cases for banks, she had learned how to spot unusual patterns in contracts. When she looked at our father's company records, something immediately felt wrong. So she started investigating, and what she found was another betrayal hiding inside our family circle. I asked her what she planned to do with the information. She didn't answer right away. Instead she looked out the window at the busy streets of Mumbai. Then she said something that sounded very familiar. "I'm waiting for the right moment." About a month later the moment arrived. Mahesh suddenly filed a legal claim in court. He demanded official recognition of his 45% ownership in my father's company. My father was shocked when he received the notice. He couldn't understand how his trusted partner had turned against him. But legally Mahesh had documents supporting his claim. My father had no idea those documents were forged. The court scheduled a hearing. Mahesh arrived confidently with expensive lawyers. My father looked exhausted and worried. Then something unexpected happened. A new lawyer walked into the courtroom carrying several files. It was Kavya. My father looked completely stunned when he saw her. She calmly introduced herself as part of the legal team defending the company. Then she began presenting the evidence. Forgery reports, original contract copies, signature analysis, bank transaction records. One by one she destroyed Mahesh's claim. The most powerful moment came when she showed the forensic handwriting report proving that the modified contract had been signed by Mahesh himself. Not by my father. The courtroom filled with whispers. Mahesh's lawyers tried to argue, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge dismissed Mahesh's ownership claim and ordered an investigation into document forgery. Mahesh left the courtroom looking terrified. My father sat there in complete silence. After the hearing ended he slowly approached Kavya. For a moment it looked like he wanted to apologize. But before he could speak, Kavya said something calmly. "You don't need to thank me." My father looked confused. "Then why did you help us?" She replied, "Because justice matters, even when family doesn't." Then she walked away. Later that evening we stood outside a small cafe in Mumbai. I asked her why she kept helping the same family that once destroyed her life. She thought about the question for a moment. Then she smiled slightly, because truth always wins eventually. But she also said something else. Something that made me realize our story wasn't finished yet. She told me that while investigating Mahesh's fraud, she discovered another secret connected to our family. A secret involving our mother. And according to Kavya, that secret was much bigger than anything that had happened before. Update 2. A lot of people asked what the secret about our mother was. Honestly, when my sister first told me about it, I didn't believe her either. After the court hearing in Mumbai, Kavya and I sat at a small cafe near her office. The city was loud, the traffic never stopped, but Kavya looked completely calm. She opened another file on her laptop and turned the screen toward me. "Before you react," she said, "just listen." The documents on the screen were property records. At first I thought they were unrelated to our family business. But then I saw our home address in Ahmedabad. That confused me. Our house had always belonged to my father. Everyone in the family knew that. He bought it years ago after his textile business started growing. So why was Kavya looking at those records? She zoomed in on the ownership details. And that's when I saw something strange. My father's name was not the primary owner. Instead, the property was listed under my mother's name. That alone wasn't unusual. Many families register property under the wife's name for tax reasons. But there was another name listed beside hers. Someone I had never heard before. A man named Rajiv Mehta. I frowned. Who is that? Kavya closed the laptop slowly. That's exactly the question I asked. She explained that while investigating Mahesh Patel's forged contracts, she had also checked several public property records connected to our family. That's when she discovered something very strange. Our house in Ahmedabad was partially owned by a man who had no connection to our family. And the documents showed the ownership change happened about 8 years ago. The same time my father expanded his business. I immediately assumed it was some kind of mistake. But Kavya had already checked everything. The documents were real, the signatures were real, and the transfer had been done legally. Which meant only one thing. Our mother had signed those papers. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. You think Mom gave away part of the house to some stranger? Kavya shook her head. No, I think she was manipulated. Then she showed me something even worse. Bank transfer records. Large amounts of money moving from my father's company account into another account connected to that same man. Rajiv Mehta. The transfers happened multiple times over several years. But the payments were hidden inside different expense categories. Supplier payments, logistics costs, consulting fees, all fake. Someone had been quietly draining money from the company for years. I sat there staring at the screen. Does Dad know? Kavya shook her head. No. Then she added quietly, and I don't think Mom understands what she signed either. According to Kavya's investigation, Rajiv Mehta was a property agent who specialized in complicated financial deals. Deals that often involved manipulating paperwork. He had convinced my mother that transferring partial ownership of the house would help the family avoid certain taxes connected to the business. My mother trusted him. She signed the documents. But what she didn't realize was that the deal gave Rajiv legal rights to our house. If he wanted, he could claim part of the property. And because the payments from the business were disguised as expenses, my father never noticed. For years the money quietly disappeared. I asked Kavya the question that was on my mind. Why are you telling me this now? She leaned back in her chair. Because Rajiv just made a move. She opened another document. It was a legal notice. Rajiv Mehta was claiming partial ownership of our house. And he was demanding a financial settlement. A very large one. If my father refused, Rajiv planned to take the case to court. I suddenly understood the situation. Our family was about to face another scandal. If the case went public, people would start asking questions. Questions about the missing money. Questions about the property transfer. Questions that could destroy what little reputation our parents still had. I looked at Kavya. What are you going to do? She didn't answer immediately. Instead she said something that surprised me. I'm going home. I blinked. Home. She nodded. To Ahmedabad. The next morning we took the flight together. It had been years since Kavya stepped inside our family house. When we arrived, my parents were shocked to see her. My mother looked nervous. My father looked uncomfortable. The last time they saw her, she had exposed Rohan in front of the entire family. But this time Kavya wasn't there to fight. She calmly sat down at the dining table and placed a folder in front of my parents. You need to see this. My father opened the folder. Inside were the property documents, the bank transfer records, and the legal notice from Rajiv Mehta. My mother's face slowly turned pale. She started shaking her head. I didn't know. I thought it was just paperwork for taxes. My father looked furious. You signed our house to a stranger. My mother began crying. She explained that Rajiv had convinced her the documents were necessary to protect the company from certain government regulations. He told her my father would approve the decision. But she never actually discussed it with him. She simply trusted the wrong person. My father looked like he had aged 10 years in a few minutes. Then he looked at Kavya. What do we do now? For a long moment Kavya didn't speak. The same parents who once ignored her advice were now asking for her help. Finally she answered. We expose him. She explained that Rajiv's scheme only worked if nobody investigated the original deal. But Kavya had already done that investigation. She had collected evidence showing that Rajiv had used similar tricks with several other families. Fake financial advice, complicated contracts, hidden property transfers. In other words, he was a professional scammer. Within days Kavya prepared a full legal case. This time the evidence was even stronger than before. Fraud, property manipulation, financial deception. Rajiv Mehta quickly realized he had made a huge mistake targeting the wrong family. Because the daughter that family once ignored had become a very dangerous lawyer. And soon the entire truth would come out. But what happened next shocked even Kavya. Because when Rajiv realized he was about to lose everything, he tried one last desperate move. And that move nearly destroyed our entire family again. Update 3. A lot has happened since my last update. I honestly didn't expect the situation to escalate the way it did. When we exposed Rajiv Mehta's property scam, we believed the evidence was strong enough to end the problem quickly. My sister Kavya had collected everything: property records, bank transfer histories, fraud patterns from his previous deals. The plan was simple: file the case and force Rajiv to withdraw his claim on our house in Ahmedabad. But Rajiv was not the kind of person who surrendered quietly. About a week after my parents learned the truth, my father received another message. This time it wasn't a legal notice. It was a threat. Rajiv claimed that if we took the case to court, he would reveal certain financial irregularities connected to our father's company. At first my father thought it was just intimidation. But Kavya looked very serious when she read the message. She told us something we didn't want to hear. Even though Rajiv was the one manipulating the property deal, the money transfers from the company account still existed. Legally, those transactions could look suspicious. If Rajiv publicly accused our father of financial misconduct, it could start another investigation. And after the Rohan scandal, our family couldn't survive another public controversy. My father was exhausted. For years he had worked to rebuild the company's reputation. Now everything was at risk again. For the first time in my life I saw him completely helpless. But Kavya looked calm, the same calm expression she always had when people underestimated her. She said something simple: let him talk. My father didn't understand. What if he goes to the police? Kavya replied quietly, then we go first. The next morning she traveled back to Mumbai to prepare the case properly. For several days she worked almost non-stop. She contacted financial investigators. She collected statements from other families who had been tricked by Rajiv. It turned out our family wasn't the only victim. There were at least 4 other property disputes connected to his name. Each one involved complicated contracts and manipulated paperwork. But the victims were afraid to fight him because the legal cases were expensive. Kavya convinced them to cooperate. If they combined their evidence, the fraud pattern would become impossible to ignore. Within 2 weeks she had built a massive case file. Meanwhile Rajiv continued sending threatening messages. He believed our family would panic and offer him money to settle the dispute quietly. But he made a critical mistake. He underestimated my sister. The official complaint was filed in court in Ahmedabad. Fraud, property manipulation, financial deception. When Rajiv received the court notice, he finally realized the situation had changed. Now he wasn't the one making threats. He was the one facing serious criminal charges. The court hearing happened about a month later. The courtroom was crowded. My parents sat together silently. My mother looked nervous. My father looked tense. Rajiv arrived with 2 expensive lawyers. He still tried to appear confident, but it was obvious he was worried. Then Kavya entered the courtroom. She walked in carrying several thick files. Completely calm. When the hearing began, Rajiv's lawyers tried to attack first. They argued that my mother had willingly signed the property documents. They claimed Rajiv had simply acted as a consultant. But then Kavya started presenting the evidence. One by one she showed the pattern behind Rajiv's deals. The same type of contracts. The same confusing financial advice. The same hidden ownership transfers. She also presented statements from the other victims. People who had experienced almost identical situations. Then she revealed something that changed everything. A recorded phone conversation. One of the victims had secretly recorded Rajiv discussing how he manipulated property agreements to gain partial ownership of houses. His voice was clear. The courtroom went silent as the recording played. Even Rajiv's lawyers looked shocked. After that moment the case collapsed for him. The judge ordered a full investigation into Rajiv's activities. His property claim on our house was immediately suspended, and the financial transactions connected to the fraud were placed under review. Rajiv walked out of the courtroom looking completely defeated. For the 3rd time in our family's story, someone who thought they were smarter than everyone else had been exposed. But the most surprising moment happened after the hearing. My father approached Kavya outside the courtroom. For a long moment he didn't say anything. Then he finally spoke. I was wrong about you. It wasn't a dramatic apology. But for my father, it was a huge admission. My mother also hugged Kavya and apologized for trusting the wrong people. Kavya listened quietly. Then she said something that perfectly described the entire situation. Trust should never replace understanding. After that day things slowly started changing in our family. The legal case against Rajiv continued, but the immediate threat to our house was gone. My father's business stabilized again. But the biggest change was in the way my parents treated my sister. For the first time in her life, they respected her decisions. As for Kavya, she returned to Mumbai and continued building her legal career. Today she is known for handling complex financial fraud cases. Banks consult her, companies hire her, and sometimes families like ours come to her when they realize they trusted the wrong people. Looking back, the strange thing is that none of this revenge was loud or emotional. Kavya never shouted. She never insulted anyone. She simply exposed the truth. One lie at a time. And in the end, that was more powerful than anything else. Thanks for reading my updates. Honestly, Writing all this out helped me understand my sister even better. Because the strongest revenge isn't destroying someone. It's proving they were wrong about you all along.